Welcome back into the podcast. Excited to do this because it is draft week. If you're getting this right when the download, it is Monday morning, and we are excited because the Chicago Bears are controlling the draft, something that has not happened pretty much ever. And we are going to talk to one of the best in the business from The Athletic. He is Dane Brugler, of course, the Beast. His comprehensive draft guide is available now. Make sure you go out, subscribe to The Athletic, and get it. And I'll tell you this right now, if you are not an Athletic subscriber, the cost for a full year of The Athletic, the Beast is worth it right there alone, and then you get a full year of The Athletic to go with it. So, Dane, Bill Zimmerman, how you doing?
I'm good. I appreciate that intro. The feedback's been awesome so far with the Beast. It's 18 months in the making, try to make this the best draft guide out there. And, all the information from the background to the pro day testing to the analysis, all the metrics, everything, try to paint a picture of who each one of these players are. So I think if you're a casual fan, if you're a diehard NFL draft fan, there's something in here for everybody. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And look, as someone who's been doing this, I've been getting more into the draft and trying to analyze players and do this on my own instead of just relying on others' work. And for the first time ever, I got up to about 100, 125 prospects, which I feel good about. And then I see the amount of legwork you put into this. I mean, if you're listening to this isn't just like, all right, whoever the Bears take at 122 is going to be in here if they trade down and have someone at 180. Dane goes deep. You'll have the UDFAs, potentially all the UDFAs. It is so comprehensive, and the detail and information, the testing, the amount of guys that you have in there, it's really remarkable work. And like I said, there is no better draft guide. So no better person to have on than Dane Brugler. So let's dive into this, Dane. Let's talk about the number one pick, presumptive Caleb Williams. I don't think we need to pretend that they're still considering Drake May or anyone else. But let me ask you a couple things, because I think everyone listening to this has heard all the superlatives and the positives about Drake May, but I want to try and put him in perspective. So I'm curious, about when did you start doing scouting and really kind of getting into this world?
With this process?
No, like you yourself, your career. When did you start scouting? Like how many years ago?
Well, growing up in Northeast Ohio, I was about 12, 13 when the Browns came back to the league, and there was something about that draft that just kind of triggered something. Like, this is amazing. This is, okay, what makes a good college player a good pro player? Or why wouldn't they be good in the NFL? And all these different scenarios. And I fell in love with scouting then. And over the years, I put myself in position to learn about the business. And I went to Mount Union, and Pierre Garçon and I were seniors together. And so I worked for the team, and his senior year, we had scouts coming through every week. And so that was kind of my informal scouting education, was meeting these scouts, taking them around the facilities and introducing them to different people and learning from them. And that was when I started networking with these guys and, learning about what it took to be a scout and everything like that. So I've been doing this for a long time at this point. And, as the game evolves, scouting evolves, and there's never a dull moment, because there's always something new with what a player offers or what's working in the NFL. And it's interesting from my perspective, because we're doing this from a very generalized point of view. We're not scouting for a specific scheme or culture fit, or, it's a very generalized view. So we're looking at everybody, and that makes it interesting. Just trying to figure out, okay, this guy does this best, so he's going to fit this best, or he didn't really show it on tape, but I think he has it in him to do this if he's used in this way. And so all these different ways to attack it. And, you're obviously going to get guys wrong. It's kind of like a hitter in baseball. If you get on base 4 times out of 10 in baseball, you're doing your job. And in scouting, it's kind of the same thing. You're going to miss on players, but you have to self-evaluate and understand, okay, why did I miss on a player? But overall, I feel good about my batting average, and, I've been doing this long enough where, it's definitely had my test cases where I could learn from some mistakes. So it's been a fun process.
All right. So, and that's why I want to kind of ask you how long you've been doing this, because, I don't want to sit there and ask you, compare prospect Caleb Williams to prospect John Elway. But, right. In this last century, let's talk about that. Where is Caleb in terms of a prospect? I mean, we hear generational, we hear best since Andrew Luck, or, some people say, no, Trevor Lawrence was a better prospect. So if you try and pull back and really look at Caleb, who he is right now as a quarterback prospect, where would you consider him over, say, the last 25 years?
It's so tough to do it that far because the game is so different. So let's just say
Sure.
the last 10 years. Let's
All
just
right.
say, okay, like Joe Burrow is the best quarterback that I personally have evaluated the last 10 years. I don't think Caleb's on that level, but I think
All
he's
right.
in that second tier with like Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence would be 2 up to this point. Caleb Williams is kind of right there in that mix on that tier. They're different players, obviously. They offer different things, and it's always tough to do this because you have to eliminate what we know of these guys in the
Of
NFL and
course.
just focus on them on prospects, which can be tough. But with Caleb, when you're looking at quarterbacks, you're essentially making a bet. You're betting that we have the number 1 pick. Our best bet that of these quarterbacks, this guy's going to work out. We're going to bet on Caleb, and I think why the Bears and so many people would be willing to make that bet is he just has rare football awareness. It is something that shows up on tape over and over again, whether he's in the pocket, whether he's working off platform, the way that he processes the field, understands what the defense is doing, understand where his guys are, and all the pieces are involved with that. So the rare football awareness is really what separates him. But then he has also the physical traits. He's not the tallest guy, but he's well built. He's a good athlete. His arm is outstanding in terms of velocity and accuracy. And I love that he can throw from any awkward position. And that comes from his body balance, his base, and just having the pure velocity to do that. So he has a good understanding for touch. And it doesn't matter if he's on the move, if he's throwing off platform, off schedule. So I think, he's not a perfect prospect by any means, but all the positives that I just spoke of, that's why we consider him one of the better quarterbacks that come out in recent memory.
Well, I mean, we hear all the positives. So let me ask you a negative. Like if 4 or 5 years from now, for whatever the reason, Caleb Williams is a middle of the pack quarterback, a backup quarterback, just it didn't hit for him in the NFL. What is something that you're seeing right now, whether that's on tape or something off tape, that you'd sit there and say that might be the reason why?
First and foremost, the fumbles. PFF has it down at 33 fumbles the last 3 years. So he leads all of college football over the last 3 years in touchdowns, but he also leads all of college football in fumbles. And so I'm encouraged by the lack of interceptions. He takes care of the ball when he puts it in the air, but the ball security needs to be better. And obviously, I think a lot of Bears fans will make connections with Justin Fields and the fumbles. And I think that's where maybe some of the comparison stops, but it is something that he needs to get better at. And then the second thing, it's something that a lot of young quarterbacks struggle with, and that's understanding when to, the efficiency going from read to read, and it just understanding when to linger on a read because it's about to come open, understanding, okay, I'm going to eliminate that and go to the next guy. Being more efficient there, because we can throw on the tape and see him go 1 to 2 to 3, but being more efficient with his understanding of the timing. Okay, one's not there, boom, move on. Or one's about to come open, I need to stay on this a half beat longer. Just understanding that relationship, especially in the NFL, when everything's just a little bit faster, especially against the defenses he used to face in the Pac-12. So when everything's just a little bit faster, his mind has to speed up a little bit more, and not every quarterback is able to do that. And so that's something that's hard to project. It's something that is hard to figure out whether or not he can do it, and why quarterback is obviously the hardest position to play, but also the hardest position to evaluate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a former GM tell you this, so I want to tell me this. So I want to ask you this, if you think this is accurate. And I know this is difficult because it's theoretical, but if Caleb Williams was allowed to come out prior to this season, we back in the late 90s, you heard Tim Duncan was the presumptive number 1 pick of the NBA draft 4 consecutive years till he finally came out and was. See, this GM told me that Caleb Williams would have been the number 1 pick in the draft the last 3 years, after his freshman year, sophomore year, and then obviously now he is going to be. Would you think that's accurate? I mean, 2022, it helps with who that draft was, but
right, yeah. Especially, you think of the last 2 years. Trevon Walker going number 1 overall. Right. The Jaguars had just drafted Trevor Lawrence, so they weren't taking a quarterback, but good chance we would have seen a trade there. Right. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Last year with Bryce Young as good as and CJ Stroud at the top, as much as we liked those quarterbacks as prospects, yeah, I think it's fair if you had Caleb Williams as number 1 among that group. So yeah, I don't think that's crazy. And it's when you draft a quarterback number 1, sometimes it takes a little bit of luck that you're picking number 1 in a year where there is a high level guy. And I think the Bears, they've got a little bit of luck here, because not only is this a year where you have the number one overall pick in a year where there's a top quarterback that's really separated himself, but also it's a good year to have multiple top 10 picks, because this is a high-end, a top-heavy draft in terms of talent. So they kind of got lucky twice, and now they still have to draft the right players and see and develop them and make sure it works out. But it takes a little bit of luck if you're going to get on the right track, and that might be the case for the Bears.
All right, well, let's move on to number 9. Like you said, 2 top 10 picks is a good draft to have it. And Chicago Bears fans are hungry for Rome Odunze. That is the guy. He has been circled for weeks. That's the guy they are hoping is there at 9. And if he is, that the Bears make the selection. So let me ask you this. If 4 quarterbacks are gone, if Neighbors and Harrison are gone, and Alt and Turner is gone, is that the logical choice for you, that the Bears would just make the jump and take Rome Odunze?
I don't see how you pass on him. That's the thing, is like you can debate it about, okay, is receiver really the need in this? When you're picking top 10, need doesn't factor in as much as just give me the best player. Right. Give me the guy that, because especially when you factor in, all right, Caleb Williams is going to be our starter the next 10 years. At least that's why we're drafting him, to be that. Okay, Keenan Allen, this might be a 1-year rental. It's absolutely a smart trade to make, but who knows? This might be a 1-year rental. DJ Moore, outstanding player, but he might be gone after 3 years. Who knows? Rome Odunze, if you draft him in the top 10, he's going to be here for the long haul. He is going to pair him with the quarterback, and attrition's a real thing in the NFL. Guys get hurt. Having another weapon like this is not a waste of a resource. So when you look at the top players in this draft, Rome Odunze is absolutely one of the first, or the top 9 players in this draft. And so I think it would be very hard to look at it, all your options at 9, and say, yeah, we could use another offensive lineman, or yeah, we could use another pass rusher, but how are we going to pass on Rome Odunze here? So I would be surprised if they did. Now, who knows? We could see a team, say the Colts, they trade up from 15 to 8 and draft Rome Odunze there at 8, and all of a sudden the top 3 receivers are off the board, and they have to go to plan B, whether that's a pass rusher or an offensive lineman, which is very, very possible. We've never seen offensive players go with the first 8 picks in the draft, but if the Falcons trade out, it's very possible we see that happen for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with the Jets sitting there, you could have all offense in the top 10, which would be remarkable. But I also think there's a possibility, and you talked about a trade up. If 4 quarterbacks go, I think you would need a trade up to have 3 wide receivers off the board before 9, but I certainly think that's in the realm of possibility. So, let's talk about that situation for Ryan Poles and the Bears if all 3 receivers are gone, and how they would want to pivot. And I think that's interesting because, and I'm not saying I would necessarily take this person at 9, but to me, when you talk about best, like you said, best player available in the draft, and people keep saying, well, the Bears, if they don't take a wide receiver, they should take an edge. But because they invested in Gervon Dexter last year, I am a huge Byron Murphy fan. I think he is the best defensive player in this draft. I love what he brings to the table. That penetrating 3 tech that the Matt Eberflus scheme needs. I love that for the Bears. That would be, if it's not Rome Odunze, Byron Murphy would be my next choice. Just curious what you think of him.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Not in the least. I think Byron Murphy's going to go somewhere 8 to 18. Somewhere in that range. And yeah, I think for all the reasons that you mentioned, I mean, he is a disruptive player versus both the pass and the run. I don't know that he necessarily looks exactly like you want a defensive tackle in the top 10 to look, just physically, because he's 6'1", just around 300 pounds. But he understands how to use that natural leverage to his advantage, and he's so strong, so powerful. The twitch through his hips and the way that he moves is outstanding. I think you have a guy here that is you don't have to take him off the field in any situation. You can throw on the tape and see him play a shaded nose. You can see him play a 3 technique. He can play up and down the line. He can play a lot of snaps. I mean, there's just so much that he has going for him. And if let's just say Rome Odunze, if there's a trade at 8 and Rome Odunze goes 8, at number 9, you're looking at offensive line, Dallas Turner, a pass rusher, or maybe Byron Murphy. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the pick was Byron Murphy. I'm with you. I think he's that good of a player and someone that can really help shape your defense.
All right, well, let's talk about the 2 edges, Dallas Turner, who you mentioned, and Jared Verse, who he feels like a prototypical Matt Eberflus type type edge. He, against the run, he can set the edge. There's plenty he can do. To me, he's a low ceiling, high floor guy. The age is something. He's a couple months younger than Aiden Hutchinson, so I think that's something to consider. I'm more of a fan of Dallas Turner, but I've had, people, who know the game better than me that say, it's really 3-4. They don't see him translate as well to a 4-3 type Eberflus scheme. So talk to me a little bit about Verse and Turner in terms of potential fit in Chicago.
Yeah, I don't understand why Turner would not be a fit. I really don't. I mean, I understand 6'3", 250. Maybe that's not the ideal size that you're looking for, but he can play the run. I mean, he has really long. He's over 34-inch arms, so he can stack, shed, and control the edge against the run. He led the SEC in sacks last year. I think he's still working, becoming a more polished player in terms of the pass rush sequence and move to move and when to use a secondary move, how to set up different things. He's still working through that. I mean, he's a young player, so he's not as polished as say Will Anderson, who was his mentor at Alabama. But the effort is outstanding. He doesn't turn it off, and he's a freaky athlete. You could stand him up and play him at middle linebacker. He could do it fine. He could cover. He could make plays sideline to sideline. So I don't see why he does not fit as a defensive end. Again, is he is he 6'5", 260? No, but with almost 34.5-inch arms, he understands how to use that length to separate himself from blockers and make plays in the run game. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of the player and his potential. So for a lot of teams, Dallas Turner is the top defensive player in this draft. I think he is the betting favorite to be the first defensive player drafted. But he's a good player. And then Jared Verse is a good player as well. I mean, power-packed, 6'4", 255 pounds. Another guy where the motor just doesn't quit. I mean, he just is relentless after play after play after play. He really relies on his power to go through guys, which isn't ideal for a guy that, again, 255 pounds, and he has that power, especially that speed to power is outstanding. Not ideal that's maybe his go-to move, but he does have some other things in his bag. I'm a big fan of this player as well. I think both these guys are going to be solid NFL starters a long time. Turner, to me, just has a little more upside, a little more higher ceiling, wow potential to him, even if Verse maybe has a higher floor to him.
All right, well, let's jump to a theoretical idea, and that is that the Bears trade back. Because if you look at their top 30s and pro days, they're definitely looking at guys that might be available in the late teens, but a lot of receivers that might be available in kind of the mid to late 40s, which would be an ideal trade back spot for them. So if they do land a second round pick, looking at wide receiver in that range, I'm a fan of Ricky Pearsall, just despite the age. Keon Coleman might be a guy. Separation concerns me. Xavier Legette, the Bears kind of got burned with a 1-year wonder with Velus Jones, so I don't know if they go back. Obviously, different player, but Legette, a very late bloomer there. What would be a receiver that you like if the Bears have that 46 to 50 range pick that might be there in that area?
Yeah, I'm with you on Ricky Pearsall. I think that makes sense, both realistically about who's going to be there, but also how he fits this offense, because he has that inside-outside versatility, can line them up across the formation, really good athlete, outstanding ball skills. His ability to track and finish is terrific. The way he can contort his body is a lot of fun to watch. He is a good route runner, but also an outstanding athlete. So you have a guy here that has kind of just checks all the boxes, and that what you're looking for as a secondary receiver. I think he would complement DJ Moore really well. So if they did trade back, he's not a guy that's going to have a ton of 20-plus yard plays, 50-plus yard plays, but he is going to get you a ton of doubles, ton of singles, help you move the chains. I like that fit somewhere in the early to mid second round range. It'll be interesting with that number 9 pick if they get some trade offers, right? If they and who knows, maybe the Bills could be looking for a Julio Jones type of trade. That's a long way to go if you're the Bears, but if they give you enough in a trade, you have to at least consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for time purposes, let me combine 75 and 122. I know it's a little too far apart, but we'll make it work anyway. If they go trench in that area, both, let's call it interior offensive line and defensive line, whether that be tackle or edge, who are some of your I know you had them going edge there at 75 in your big 7-round mock. So who are some guys, kind of offensive defensive linemen in that range that you think would be good picks for Chicago?
Yeah, I had them going with Chris Braswell, the other
Right.
Alabama pass rusher, who as good as Dallas Turner is. He actually had more pressures this past year than Dallas Turner did. Only by one, but still he had more. Yeah, he's a rugged player. I think he fits the Bears well. Another guy with effort is relentless. Maybe doesn't have ideal size, but again, you're drafting him third round, so you're sacrificing something. Explosive player, like that fit quite a bit. This is an interior offensive line class that stretches. Offensive tackle drops off. If you want your offensive tackle, you better take him in the first round, because I do feel like there's a drop
It's a
off.
cliff after Guyton, right?
Yeah, and guys that are more developmental projects, guys that maybe you would draft in the third round, but they're going to go in the second, because if you don't get your guy, everyone gets pushed up a little bit. So yeah, this is an offensive tackle class that is talented, but it's more top heavy than anything. Where the interior offensive line, that's where the depth is. That's where I think you feel really good about third round, fourth round, fifth round guys being there at that stage where, okay, he can come in and give us immediate depth and potentially, play meaningful snaps for us, whether it's a Christian Mahogany from Boston College, a big hulking defensive end, but also has some movement skills. Mason McCormick from South Dakota State was a guard, but a lot of scouts believe he could play center and be a guy that gives you that interior versatility. Isaiah Adams, a guy Illinois fans are familiar with, playing there for the Illini, 6'4", 315. Was out of position at tackle. He's a natural guard, so a guy that they could fit in there. So this is an offensive line class where, again, tackles drop off, but the interior of the offensive line, center, guard, there's a lot of different options, third, fourth, fifth round.
All right, well, there he is, Dane Brugler of The Athletic. And, of course, make sure you go and download The Beast, the best comprehensive draft guide available. And I forgot to mention at the top, Prospect to Pros, Dane and Nate Tice throughout the year do a great job. They don't get lost in the weeds if you are a casual draft guy. This is a great way to track these guys throughout the season. So catch Dane there, and, of course, catch The Athletic. Dane, thank you for the interview. Really enjoyed it, and best of luck here just a few days away from the draft.
That was my pleasure. Anytime.